Okay, welcome everybody. It's Monday, August 12th, and it's Markets in the Morning with me, the great Matsby. And I have the Nasdaq E-mini futures here pulled up. But first, I just launched my Patreon. You can see it streaming across the bottom there. Just go to the patreon.com/the great Matsby if you want to check it out. Do daily and weekly updates of a lot of things of crypto and stocks. So you guys can check that out. And yeah, so the NASDAQ E-mini futures on the weekly chart basis, you can basically see that it has backtested a support zone right here. And you can see really how symmetrical it has been since it broke out above this green level, went up to the angle, backtested it. And essentially, what I'm seeing now is that, yeah, this support could hold, right? That support right there, maybe around 17.8 for the Nasdaq E-mini futures could hold. And if that does hold, then that could be a continuation higher. But before we go into other things, is it going to break out yet? I really don't think so as well, because when I put on the Ichimoku there, you can clearly see those the blue line and the orange line there. That is the conversion line and the baseline, and it's currently below. And it has not been below in a long time since it broke out in October of 2023. So being below that really means to me that there's going to be more consolidation ahead. It's going to be just more down to sideways action, probably. There is a possibility that price can come up to the baseline, maybe around 19,000 for the Nasdaq E-mini futures, but could just roll over after that and maybe retest that low, or even go to the top of the cloud to test that as well. Good morning, Richard. Hello. And essentially, we're going to go take a look at the QQQ now to see if it kind of lines up with that Nasdaq E-mini future. And I'm going to take a look at the QQQ here on linear scale, sorry. And it is kind of lining up a little bit, right? You can see that this angle right here was really important as a support. And now price is even back above that arc right there, which you see that level is around 445 or so. And it closed last week above 450, which is a good sign for a possible bottom signal, right? So that kind of leads me to believe that the arc now will be a support. So anytime it maybe goes back to a 440, 438 or so, that could be a good support for the QQQ. And we'll see if that holds. But again, the same kind of resistance sits above with the QQQ, where you at 458 and 463. That's going to be your next targets for resistance. And once price gets up there, maybe get rejected and then possibly roll back over to test the lower levels as well. So any kind of positive price action you see going on right now, I don't think it's really going to last too long, just because there's lots of resistance above still for the Nasdaq. Good morning, Jules. Yeah, so essentially it's just in a range, and as long as price gets closer and closer to resistance for the QQQ, you can probably just get less excited, because I want it to break that resistance to get excited, but so far it's just approaching it slowly. And if it gets there, then I would expect more consolidation down the sideways. So it's just going to take more time for things to break out of this, because it really had an explosive move up. So it's going to take more time to consolidate before the next leg higher. And that'll lead me to the SPY. We're going to take a look at that pre-market. And essentially, it's kind of doing the same thing, right? But it's a little bit better than the QQQ, because it closed back above that baseline there. So now that means the conversion line up at 537, maybe 538, maybe even a wick above to like 539, 540s could be possible. But I think that'll be a good resistance to be just stuck in this range as well. But so far, I think that 528 level is going to be good support, and all the way up to the 540s is going to be resistance. And Nothing to report back until it either breaks that resistance or if it breaks support. But on this GAN chart here, I'll just show you on the monthly basis what's really going on. And what's really going on with the SPY is it's back above this arc as support, right? And there's still 18, 19 days left in the month. But if that can happen, then I believe that 528 level will be a good support level for possibly just more consolidation in the months to come before it's ready to break out above to the next levels in the 600s and above, right? And the next level does sit basically around 690. So I can expect that in the future just because we've already had this successful back test right here of the 360s for the SPY. So the next level would be appropriate. And as long as this angle holds and this arc holds as support, it's just going to keep drifting higher. But since these are monthly candles, things are going to take a while to play out. Good morning, Kat. I just saw you there. Good morning. Good morning. You guys have any chart requests you want to see? Oh, I think Mara did like an offering, right? I think I saw that. Let's look at Mara pre-market here. I want to look at it on log scale, though. I like it better. So, yeah, Mara is down 4% pre-market because what do? They did, let's go look at some of that news here. Yeah, the stock drops after they plan to offer convertible debt. So, I guess some people were expecting that, and it's kind of weird timing for it all, in my opinion, because if you look at the chart, it just kind of turned a little bit more bearish here. So it's like they want to keep it under resistance. So they offered more convertible debt, and it happened right when it broke below the 50-week moving average as well. So essentially, it's just going to be stuck in this range between that 1350, and it's going to be stuck under the $17.39 50-week moving average. Hey, good morning, WT. Yeah, I'm going to review Tesla for you. But essentially, that offering did come exactly when it broke that 50. So maybe it's just to keep prices suppressed a little bit more. Who knows? Who knows the timing of it all? But it didn't happen when it was up here. It happened when it was down here. So it is interesting to think about. But essentially, I don't think it's going to break any higher anytime soon until it gets back above that 50-week moving average. So that'll be the first level to see. Yeah, let's take a look at Tesla here, pre-market. And yeah, I'll take a look at WULF too and others as well, Lemonade. But first, Tesla here. Let me just take off some of these indicators. Yeah, I'll just leave the Ichimoku. And on a week-to-week basis, what I'm really looking at for Tesla is trying to get back above that baseline, which sits at 204.90. And once that can happen, then possibly it can continue higher. But right now, it's still just stuck in a giant range as well. And I mentioned before that 198 level. And when I go to Tesla here on the linear scale chart, you can see that 198 level right there. And that is the 0.309, the halfway fib between the 382. So those are, I mean, the levels are the same as last week is really what I'm watching out for. I wanted to see continuous candle closes above that 198 level in order to push above to the higher resistance levels again. But if that does get lost, then that does lead a possibility to come back down here to retest the arc again in the low 180s, right? So it's just in this range right now. But as price goes lower, I'm more and more interested in buying more and more because it's looking really good with the market symmetry of flipping this arc to support right there. So I do like that. And once price finds its bottom, its new higher low, which that could already be right there, then it'll be ready to go higher. But nothing has really changed since my last weekly update. Oh yeah, Cat Mara is right at the monthly Super Ichi support as well. That is correct. So let's take a look at Lemonade. So Lemonade is on a weekly basis here. It's starting to go back below the cloud. And if I put on the SMAs here, it is essentially right below the 50 and closed again below the 100. So it's losing all this momentum. Lots of resistance above. I don't really see price exploding back up to these levels. And so these are like the 15 or the 1616 to the 1670 range, I think is going to be good resistance. And you saw that last week where it wicked above. And it could do the same this week again. But essentially, you're looking at a support of the previous higher low right here in the 14s. That's going to be maybe the target. If there's any other indicator on the daily chart, no, that's even more confirmation of resistance. It's back below the cloud on the daily chart. So every time it comes back up to the 16 zone, it could get sold off and maybe roll over. So there's really no support until, yeah, these low levels here until 14s. And if that gets broken, it could go and close this daily gap all the way down here into the 10 or 11s. So just one level at a time. But this is a negative development closing below this cloud again, and it's at resistance again. So I would at least look for the 14s again before any possible bounce. Let's see, WULF. I see some WULF request. Yeah, so WULF is looking like it's trying to maintain the daily cloud right now. This is the daily chart. And it's trying to, yeah, it already did flip the conversion line as a support. So it can come back down maybe and test that 350s as a support. So that's okay for WULF. And on a weekly chart basis, it's looking like, yeah, it's looking like that arc held as support right there. And now price is going up to the resistance, and that kind of sits at 404 for the baseline. So I think that could be the shorter term target for the price, but I don't know if it has enough strength to get back above to the 450s yet. So it could just consolidate around this zone. But so far, I think if it went back down to the top of the arc around 350s, I think that could be a good opportunity, or that angle again could be a good opportunity for a buy zone to continue higher and higher for that. Let's see, CELH, Celsius Holdings. All right, so the first thing that stands out is it nailed the 200-week moving average. And if you go back in time for Celsius, when was the last time that touched? Well, it was essentially after COVID, right? After COVID, it just exploded and it never back tested that 200-week until now. So usually on the first touch, that holds as a support. So I think that could be a good level right there for a possible continuation back up to resistance here, maybe around the 47s or so. But when you look on the daily chart here, you can see that it's still in a downtrend on a day-to-day basis. So can't really get too bullish on it until it starts closing candles above $42. So we'll have to keep an eye on those levels. But essentially, it's just trending down. But it looks like, at least on the weekly chart, it found its support right there around $35, $36. And if that can continue, then I can see possible strength back up to the high 40s, but it's got to get over that $42 level first. And next I see SMCI. SMCI. Okay, yeah, so nothing really has changed for my SMCI. I'm going to show my linear scale chart for that one. And this is telling the story to me. Like this orange angle was a resistance in the past. It was never back tested. So I think what I really think is going to happen now with SMCI is going to go back up to the 550s, possibly, maybe even a little bit above. But I think that's going to probably get rejected and price is probably going to roll over down to below 400. That's what I see now. Unless a weekly candle can close back above this blue angle, I don't see a bullish development happening, especially with the confluence of being underneath the Ichimoku cloud now too. So I can definitely see price going up to 550, maybe even the bottom of the cloud again, around 580, 585 or so. But I don't see it going much beyond that now. I kind of see it rolling over and back testing a level, which is actually still perfectly healthy because it had a massive breakout. Like this is really, really overextended. So all it's doing is trying to find its new higher low. And I personally think it's going to be below 400. That's what I think right now for SMCI. Okay, Amazon, I want to add to my portfolio and thinking it's a good, yeah. I think let's take a look. Amazon. So just looking at Amazon on linear scale, yeah, it hit a major support zone right there, I think, with the top of the cloud, which coincided with the level before, right here, before it really broke out. So it just back tested that range. Something I really want to see SMCI do, because if it did that, then it could be bullish as well. So essentially what I think is happening here is it's just going back up to resistance right up there. And you have the conversion and baseline at the exact same price at 176.41. So that's going to be some resistance up there. If we look at the daily chart, that might tell a better story. Yeah, it still hasn't regained any levels on the daily chart here. So essentially, I want to see it flip the 171 level to maybe a support to continue higher. But in my opinion, for Amazon, it's getting closer to resistance than it is support. So I don't know if I like it here. I would like it more if it broke these levels and flipped them to support. But right now, this is support down here, the 157. That's support to me. It's getting closer to resistance up here around 171. So, yeah, I want to see it break those levels or retest these levels to really want to buy. And Palantir. Yeah, where does Palantir really sit right now? We'll take a look at the fib level first. The 618, it's at 30.08. Yeah, it's doing what I was saying on Saturday Spaces. It's going up to maybe the 31 zone or the 32 maybe, but on log scale, I think Palantir is telling a better story right here. See, this is the reason why it can go up to the 31s, because the angle is up there, right? The angle is up there, but as you can see, I'm going to just zoom out for you guys. That angle is important. See, you can see this bullish engulfing candle. It was support right here, flipped it to a resistance right here. And ever since May 6th of 2024, it's been a resistance. So I can see it still going up, right? I can see it going to 31, maybe even 31.50, but might not get much past there. And then it could start to roll over to back test levels down below 30s again, because I don't think it's ready to break above this angle yet. I mean, it is possible. If it does break above it, I'll get more bullish. But so far, this is resistance, getting closer to resistance. So I can see it going up to 35, 31.50 or 32 or so before it really finds some serious resistance to roll over. But it's getting closer and closer to those levels. What's next? IWM. All right. IWM on the weekly chart found support nicely at 197, the 200-week moving average. But again, just like everything else in the market, it's approaching resistance. And that's first level is around 207, maybe even up to 212, 213. Oh, sorry. The first level is 210 up to 213 or so. right? The baseline sits at 209.99. So that's the first resistance level. So I honestly think that price is approaching that resistance. And if you go to the daily chart, the daily chart is also telling a similar story, that there's some resistance with the 50-day moving average there. And that's what sits around what, 207.96 right there, 207.96. And then you got the baseline and the conversion line at the exact same price at 212.67. And that essentially is going to be that resistance zone that I talked about. But before it gets there, it's got to overtake that 208 level. And I don't know if it has the energy today, tomorrow, the next day to do it. But the good news is the 200-day moving average held as support. It's back above the daily cloud. And more importantly, on the weekly chart, the 200-week moving average held as support. So that is our support zone, just below 200, and resistance is what I just mentioned here. So again, it's in a range. Pretty much everything in the stock market and in crypto is still below resistance, right? Because it broke their previous levels of support. So it has to regain those levels of support, flip the resistance back to support, right? That's what it's got to do in almost everything right now. Let's see. We got how many minutes till the open? 8 minutes. Let's take a look here. Let's look at CrowdStrike pre-market here. So yeah, it's back above 242. That 200-week, 100-week moving average was a great support zone. And sure enough, price is back in the cloud, back above my bottom blue arc. So that was the buy. And now it's looking like price could go back up to the top of the cloud, maybe into the 260s or so, for a continuation. So let's go check out daily activity, and it's even back above that conversion line too. And that kind of leads me to believe that price does want to continue higher up into maybe the 260s or even 270s or 280s, right? So I think there could be a lot of continuation higher for CrowdStrike now that it has found a bottom, but it could come back down and test levels before then. And let's go back to the weekly chart just so I can show you. That really sits here now at the blue arc. So I think the support now could be the 233 zone down to the bottom of the cloud, the 227. I think that could be your support zone now for a continuation up into the 260s or 270s, right? And ABT. Okay, this is a clear picture of resistance. This bullish engulfing candle of 5-6% came exactly to the 200-week moving average, and it got rejected. So once it gets rejected, it tries to find a new support, and that new support does sit maybe the top of the cloud there at 106, or even back down to the 50 and 100 moving average around 105.75 or so, 106, that zone, right? So I think that's going to be where price wants to drift to. I'm not sure if it's ready to break out. It's just in a range, right? It could be anywhere from like 112 all the way down to 106, 105, right? That's the range. But I like it. I would like it better if it did get back to the support zone right there. All right, let's go to let's look at some Apple pre-market here. Yeah, Apple is not doing anything, but it is back above the conversion line for Apple. So this chart is actually really 100% bullish now when you look at it, just because it's above all the levels again, and the Ichimoku and all the moving averages. So yeah, there's nothing bearish about Apple anymore. MRK, Merck. So Merck is looking like it is holding the 100-week moving average as support. It's back in the cloud, so that's your support level, right? The bottom of the cloud sits at 113.70, and the 100-week is at 112.50. So that is your support. It's pretty close to there, but then you have you have your resistance above with the 118.50 week, and then up here in the 120s. So it's just also above support, under some resistance above, right? And when you see this bearish engulfing candle like that, it usually means it's going to take some time to get back up to these levels. So I can see price just going sideways for a while before it just goes up. So there's probably lots of time and lots of opportunities in the future to accumulate, and really no rush, because when you see a breakdown like this, it doesn't just recover immediately usually. All right. So, what's your thoughts on Flare, Matt? Do you see potential? So, yeah, I brought up Flare before many times. So here's my Flare chart, and it's been losing one angle of support at a time. And I thought it was going to hold maybe this angle as a support, but it didn't. And now it's a resistance. So what I honestly think about Flare is it's going to go back to these levels here, where it's basically the price before it broke out. And even when we go to the daily chart, maybe you can see it more clearly. I'll just take this off because it's below everything, right? It's below all the indicators on the daily chart, even the conversion line. But when you look at the market symmetry here, just by itself, you can clearly see how this angle was important. All these angles are important. This blue angle was important. This one was important. This one is lost. It flipped it to resistance. So I think the target's going to be down here at 0.012. That's what I think. And if you look to the left, this is a zone, right? A really nice zone where price was before it broke out. So I think that's what you can see for a possible back test, right? But in the grand scheme of things, it just had a massive breakout. Then it's just back testing a level, trying to find a higher low. Could this be the higher low? It's possible, right? And if you turn on back these moving averages and the Ichimoku and go back to the weekly chart, all right, you can see that there's a lot of resistance above, and they're kind of a long ways away from there. So could price easily come back up and retest like the 2 cent zone or so before it goes down there? That is a possibility, right? So it's not, nothing goes down in a straight line, but I think the ultimate target could be this angle wherever it leads to in time. Could be down here at 0.012, could be up here where it's at 0.015 at current price, right? We don't really know. So I just think there's no rush for a lot of these altcoins, especially Flare, because they've lost all the support. So that's going to take some time to regain their higher lows in an attempt to move higher. And before we go back to stocks, I'll just go look at Bitcoin real quick. And Bitcoin looks similar to a lot of other charts. It looks like a lot of stocks. It looks like a lot of things where it lost support, right? This baseline was a support and it lost it. And it even had that bearish cross, the blue conversion line cross below the orange baseline, which is going to add more resistance. So essentially, the 50-week moving average held as support, which coincided with my arc. And that is probably going to be the low. But what I can really see is just price and drifting closer to the cloud over time, maybe even October, before price can continue higher. So I think there's really no rush for a lot of things right now. There's no rush for Bitcoin. There's no rush for altcoins. There's no rush for a lot of stocks right now because they're just drifting down to sideways until they find their base. And that's exactly what Bitcoin's doing. So just got to give it time. That's it. Thank you, Genvest. Top notch. Thank you so much. So, yeah, that's essentially it. What time is it now? Oh, the market's open. Let's go look at the market. It's 8:30 or 9:31 Eastern time. And so there we have it. The indices, what the Dow is up 38 points, SPY up 132, QQQ is up as well. IWM is down. Yeah, because it's approaching resistance as well. ARK down. Tesla is down $2. Apple is up. CrowdStrike up. SMCI is up. Yeah, SMCI is just doing what I'm expecting it to do. Come back up to maybe the 550s, 570s. But let's take a look at Tesla on the daily chart. Yeah, so this is telling a story for Tesla. It's on the bottom side of the cloud now, and this future cloud is red. But it's in a clearly defined range of the 100-day at 191.42 and the 200-day at 203.09. So that is the range. If it gets closer to support, I think that would be good. Closer to resistance, just be a little bit more cautious until it breaks. But essentially, this is going to take more time. And I mean, we saw it many times before where once it breaks a cloud, it just continues lower. But here, it broke all the averages, right? It broke the 50, it broke the 100 and the 200-day, and it just kept drifting lower and lower. But here, it still has support above. It has the ARC and it has the 100 days. So I think anything in the low 190s is probably a good opportunity for Tesla. But I essentially just see it stuck in this range for maybe the rest of the week, right? I don't know if it'll get lower than that. I don't know if it can break above. So that's just going to be my targets for the rest of the week. Yeah, and there goes Palantir. It's going. Let's go back to the log scale chart here. There it is. It's probably going to go up and touch my angle again, maybe 3160, 3170, who knows, right? But I would be cautious once it gets there. So keep an eye on that level, everybody. Yeah, I think that's about it, unless there's any more requests, because it looks like just everything's in a range, guys. Nothing exciting is happening. Look at the QQQ under resistance, SPY under resistance, in a range. The Dow Jones, it's kind of at support right now for the Dow. Support is like 39,493. It's at 39,516. So it's kind of at support, but still under resistance up there. The SMH under resistance up here in the 230s, and support should be around 220 for the SMH. So yeah, I think I'll call it a morning, because not too much exciting things happening right now, and it looks like just pay attention to those levels that I mentioned and have a good rest of your day.